Welcome to this new episode of Lucky Last. If you are not following me right now, please go on your preferred podcast platform and follow, or go to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Today I want to talk about something personal. I actually wanted to talk about this for a long time, but I didn't have the opportunity to do it. Is the fact that you lose your identity when you move abroad. So I moved halfway across the world, as you know, to start a new life. But somewhere along the way, I didn't just start over, I completely erased the person that I used to be. When you move abroad, people believe that it's the ultimate act of self-discovery. And it is. You find your real me, you go through so much growth, but you need as well to achieve this, to lose yourself, and for a little while become a stranger in your own life. And it's exactly what happened to me. Before I left France, I knew who I was, or at least I thought I did. My identity felt solid, something I could actually hold. It was built from 1,000 tiny and insignificant random things. It was the jokes with my friends I had for over many years. It was knowing which pub had the best food, the shortcut to beat rush hour traffic, and exactly how to make my dad laugh with a single, perfectly timed movie quote. My identity was my career. I was good at my job, I had a title, and people came to me for answers. I wore my professional confidence like a well-fitting coat. It kept me secure and warm. When I spoke up in meetings, people actually listened. My opinions were built on years of context that everyone else in the room shared and understood. I didn't just have a life, I actually had a context. And then I decided to pack it all into a few suitcases, thinking I could just start a new life from scratch. I had no idea that in leaving it all behind, I'd unravel myself completely. How did I disappear? It was actually slow. It took me 2 years to realize it. It was sneaky. It started with the little things. The first piece of me to go, and that was a huge one, my sense of humor. Back home, my jokes were my currency. I could land a joke, make a reference, and connect with people. Here, my jokes were just lost in translation, literally. All the cultural touchstones that made my humor work, they meant nothing in another country with another language. I'd say something that would have killed in France with my friends. Here, I would have got a blank stare or a polite, confused smile. So after a while, what do? You just stop trying. You get quieter. And I became more hesitant, more watchful. I became a social ghost. I'm in the room, but not really there. I lost friends. I started to have friends when I arrived, and then I lost many friends because I could not be myself. Then came the professional vanishing act. I figured my skills would transfer, no problem. What I didn't account for was losing my professional context. And I was not speaking the language properly. So when I started in Australia, when I came to Australia, I started from scratch, absolutely scratch. I was a waitress for 2 years. I could not do any other job. I went from being the go-to expert to feeling like an intern again, let's say. Always asking questions, so unsure of the new workplace culture, and absolutely not confident with my skills. I was no longer the expert, I was just a foreigner. A label that felt small and isolating. This was not empowering at all, it was diminishing. The cultural erasure was as well difficult. When you move abroad, you don't just land in a new culture, you actually get stuck in a weird limbo between two. I was no longer up to date with the new slangs, the politics, what was happening in France. So chat with friends and family became strained. They talk about things that I could not understand. I definitely felt disconnected. And it was a huge reminder that their world was actually moving on without me. But at the same time, I was not truly part of a new culture. I felt like a constant outsider on both cultures. I didn't fully belong to my past or my present, just floating in some kind of cultural no man's land. And finally, the personal erasure cut the deepest. To survive, you adapt. So you soften your opinions to avoid a misunderstanding. You find your core values, things that you thought were set in stone, becoming strangely flexible out of necessity. And that was exhausting. I was essentially performing a version of myself, and this is where you start to question everything. Who am I if I am not the person my friends knew? Who am I without my career? Who am I when all the signs that told me who I was before are gone? So you start from scratch with no confidence at all on who you are, and you feel like a stranger in your own life. Of course, I didn't realize that immediately. As I said, it took time. It was one layer at a time. It didn't happen like that. I arrived in Australia and boom, I realized that I lost myself. No, it took years. It took me 2 to 3 years. And for a few years, I felt so isolated, simply because it wasn't just 12,000 kilometers, it was a shared experience. They were living a life that used to be mine, but now felt totally foreign for me. So when you realize that, you just feel very lonely and isolated, and you wonder if you made the right decision, because you need to understand who you are to grow, to find yourself again. So when I decided to leave France, I just succeeded in losing the one version of myself that I ever knew. And I was grieving a life that I had chosen to live. And I later found that there is a name for this. It's called ambiguous grief. It's mourning something that is not dead, but is no longer yours. Once I realized this, I decided to move forward and start building myself again. Moving abroad, that it's a huge opportunity for growth, a chance to find your true self. And I absolutely believe that it's true. But we need to be very clear, it will take years. The version of me in France, she built the foundation. She worked hard, she dreamed big, and she laid the groundwork for the woman behind this mic today. And I'm so grateful for her. But I'm not her anymore, not at all. I've stretched, I've outgrown comfort, and in the process, I found a different perspective, new ambitions, a clearer voice, and a stronger sense of purpose. That transformation from mourning to becoming is why this show exists. And it's why I believe in telling these stories, because so many of us are silently living in the in-between, the nepenthe, like I talked about in a previous episode, the messy middle. We are not lost, but we are not fully found either. And many people are in this space. I'm very grateful for who I became and for the decision I made when I decided to leave France. But I don't think we talk much about the price of admission. The identity that you leave behind doesn't just wait for you, it fades. And a new identity is not something that you just find easily like that. It's something that you have to build from the rubble of the old one, and usually without a blueprint. I know that I say goodbye to the person that I used to be. It was a product of a time and a place that no longer exists for me. I had to rebuild myself again with a mix of French and English sentences. I call that the French glitch. And I understood that I'm a citizen of two worlds, and I need to accept that and embrace that. Accepting this new reality is not about finding some happy ending. It's about understanding that I didn't just move. I erased myself and I rebuilt myself. And this rebuild is an ongoing process. It can be very confusing and isolating at the beginning of the process, but it can be really rewarding when you find yourself again. So if you ever felt a piece of yourself disappearing after a big life change, moving to a new city, starting over, I would love to hear about it. So don't hesitate to leave a comment, DM me, share. I would love to. As always, I like sharing my own thoughts and reflection. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that it resonates with you. Don't hesitate to share, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Lucky Last. If you enjoyed today's conversation, remember to subscribe or follow me on your favorite podcast platform. And if you are more of a visual learner, you can catch the video version of this episode on my YouTube channel. Just search for Lucky Last and hit subscribe to never miss an episode. As always, your support means the world to me. So until next time, keep chasing your dreams and embracing those lucky last chances. See you soon!